Dear friends, I'm glad to meet you all on Feygin Live. It is Monday, 20th of June, 3 minutes past 10, Kiev time, day 117 with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to see you, Olexiy. Good evening, everybody. There's about 170,000 people watching us. Mondays are usually good, and I do hope that you all will use the opportunity to share this stream in your social media and everywhere else, so more people will be aware of our cast. And of course, subscribe to our channels, Feygin Live, Olexiy Arestovych, and if you're watching that in English, subscribe to the privateer station. All right, let's start with the yesterday that we missed. How did situation change? I will quote our president. He said that Monday will be a historic one. For the most part, he was referring to giving us as a country a status of the candidate to European Union, but he also warned that there'll be attacks on Kharkov and that there'll be a big battle near Severodonetsk, and Nikolaev might also get threatened. So that group that was on the south of Belgorod region, to the north of Ukraine, northeast, it likely will start moving this week and will be sent in the direction of Kharkov, because it is battle ready now, more or less. It's got full roster of people and got the ammo. So there's part of Russian troops some of them, they're already on the Ukraine territory, and they've been shelling Kharkov. So as I said before, this is a true battlefront city now. People are dying and getting wounded. So I'm calling upon the citizens to not take air raid sirens lightly. Go hide and take care of your kids and elderly, and frankly, if you can, leave the city with those groups of people so you can protect them, because it might be a while till we push the Russians back to a distance where they cannot reach the city with their shelling. Now let's go to Zoom. There was a group there that started moving too. We're showing that on the map. Yes, thank you. They tried to move to Bogorodichne, Krasnopolye, towards Priship. They're trying to cut our troops to the old caravan and Raigorodok, but they cannot cross Siversky Donets river. So there was a lot of movement, rather serious, near Severodonetsk. The enemy with a small force, though, but is trying to advance on all the front. A bit to the south of Severodonetsk, in the triangle Belaya Gora, Voronova, and Sirotinina, there were a lot of actions there. From Toshkovka and Orekhova, they're moving to that road. That goes up towards north. So they almost got to that road. And the problem of Golden, the one that's in the down 5 o'clock protrusion, is a big question. We don't know what will be happening there. Near Kamyshevacho, they're trying to push to Alexandrovka, to Lysychansk from Vasilievka, to Klinova if you look to the south. They're trying to cut the M03 road. All that group is actively moving now. A bit less up north in Izum, but near Severodonetsk they're rather active, except for not with a big force. They're not throwing big groups in the fight, so we can work with that, and it is a difficult but still controlled situation. Everything became more alive, in parentheses, in that area. So it's not as it was a couple days ago, when it was a tactical pause. So that basically is the result of them trying to throw those 5 or 6 tactical groups that they accumulated, and it seems they did not throw them all immediately. There's no direction of main hit where they would put 2 or 3 or all of the 5 battalion tactical groups. They're sort of hitting us with open palm, trying to find a soft spot in the defense. And upon finding it, maybe concentrate their main effort on it. So tomorrow, the day after, likely will be the days when, if they find such an area, they'll concentrate on it. But as Sergei Gadai said, the head of the region, the battles are in Severodonetsk, towards the industrial region. There is street fighting, artillery shelling on both sides. And our troops are holding, preventing the attempts to encircle them. But as always, when new troops are being thrown, new forces are being thrown from the opponent's side into the battle, there's always that risk. So we're monitoring and observing how is it developing. And on the southern direction, okay, let's bring up the south, Zaporozhye. According to some careful data, we started moving forward in a general direction of Melitopol. We did not advance far, we're just carefully probing. Let me clarify the direction. Vasilievka/Melitopol direction. And I underline, I'm not trying to give exact settlements and towns, but to not hurt our troops. But in general, that's the area, and we do have initiative. About a week ago, Russia had some advantage there. They had 3 battle tactical groups in that area, and they were planning to attack Zaporozhye. But now we have the advantage and initiative. In Kherson, we really moved close to Kherson now. We're really close to Pravdina. There are no active offensive maneuvers in that area. There is also a pause. Both sides are getting tired real fast. If you remember at the beginning, Russians could hold 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 weeks of military pressure on us. But now, after every move they do, they usually take 2 days of active actions, a day off. And our troops are also a bit tired, so all this fighting is somewhat in an impulse pattern. Go fight, take rest. But in general, it is our advantage, it is our initiative on this front. What's the distance to Kherson from Ukraine troops? About 15 to 17 kilometers. You can actually see the city in binoculars already. But one should not be giddy about it, because war is such a thing that it can take you a year to go for 18 kilometers into enemy's territory. But we're trying, we're looking for ways, So in general, if to gauge that, it appears that on the south, the situation in relation to some counteroffensive actions by Ukraine military, situation is better in the south than on the east. What do you mean better? On the south, we are advancing. On the east, they are. That's what I mean. It is good for Ukraine in the south and not so good on the east. Yeah, true. And it's not happening. It's us working and making it happen this way. And actually, all the attempts to create a problem near Kharkov is related to our attempts to attack Kherson. So we're doing activity on the south. They're trying to create analogy on the north. Does it mean that it's easier for them on the north, from Belgorod, across the border, to bring more reserves than to throw reserves towards Kherson? Of course, of course. Kherson is literally just 2 supply lines, dam near New Kakhovka and Antonov Bridge. That's it. That's what supports it. Supply is very complicated. And over in the north, yeah, it's a lot of border, and Russians can cross it anywhere. So it is more difficult for us there. That's why the president said that there may be some difficulties near Kharkov. There may be a battle around that city. I'm still completely sure that Kharkov is an unattainable goal for Russian troops, and they probably will not even try realizing that, but they will continue artillery and MLRS shelling of that area. Super dangerous for peaceful citizens, so they have to be listening to their military civil administration. And frankly, if I could, I would take all the kids out of that city. That is dangerous. That is a danger zone. We have about 300,000+ people watching. Thank you everybody who joined. Please share the links, especially those who watch us from Russia. Share the links there, given that it is painful for all these assholes in Kremlin. Please make an effort. Stay safe, but do share that information. Now, let's see. President Zelensky visited Lysychansk. According to different data, he actually visited it. Is it supported on the Ukraine side? Yeah, I know one case when he was there last week. And probably that's the thing that they're referring to. Yeah, we're not saying it happened today. Yes, it did happen last week. He was there, 100%, yes. What I'm coming to is that Hitler actually traveled the battlefront, and our Hitler doesn't. Stalin also didn't travel, and Putin doesn't. It's different story, different concept, different approach to managing the country. So is Putin a coward? What do you say? I cannot imagine Putin to be on a battlefront. I think he's afraid. Oh, so he's a coward. He's a natural coward. I think he's frankly afraid not of us, but of his own troops. Oh, you think they will end him? Well, things may happen, you know. They can leak the information about his visit and the coordinates. Right, together with that, so that Putin is coming with his secret bag full of shit. Yeah, you know, you never know. They can leak the data so our artillery can reach it. Him and his top command, because the soldiers are not too happy with his command. Remember how they treated Ukrainians back a few months ago? They were saying, they're druggies, they're using drugs on their troops to even fight with us. And they just turned to Ukrainians and said, Ukrainian army, hey, pack your bags, don't fight Russians. And referring to the situation in Iraq when the Iraq army pretty much packed their bags and were gone even before they were hit by advancing US troops, except for very few. Here it didn't happen. The Ukrainian army is fighting. So one has to gauge two sides of it, personal and political. If you're such a cool political leader, why don't you go to the front together? Grab Kadyrov, come to the trench, get out, look out from it, take binoculars, take pictures. And this is not happening. We're calling upon him. You, Olexiy Arestovych, is calling him, right? You're calling him to Donetsk? You can count as if I did. Here's the problem. There are different political cultures here. What is the difference between Russians in Ukraine and Russians in Russia? Political culture. Because look at yourself. You don't want to be like a pro-Putin force in Russia. I won't be able to, you know? You know me. Oh, you mean genetics? Yeah, right, my genetics. Not because I'm Jewish, 50%. Yeah, I know. We got Jewish people on both sides, yes. But like in Russia, there are prominent figures who are supporting Putin offensive. Like that Jacob guy. Oh, yeah. We signed him out of world jury. He's not a Jew anymore. But being literal, it really also comes to the personal. Because trust me, the road to Lysychansk is a difficult one. Especially it's on the front line. Before that, He also was in Zaporozhye. He went to Nikolaev and Kherson. He was actually on the battlefront in Kherson, and he was giving awards to the fighters. He was there in the trenches with them, showing that I'm here with you, I understand your needs, I support you. And it's also very important to be there and to feel engage the emotional atmosphere in the front. You can only get it by talking to soldiers and officers, spending some time with them. And, you gotta spend some time, have food together, talk about things. So President Putin is not doing that. He has no emotional experience of what is happening. And according to his psychological portrait, he is a rather emotionless creature. So that has an effect on the Russian front. Our president gone to the front, gauged the situation, and he knows what to feel. He knows what to approve, what not to approve, when he's presented different legal and other solutions on his desk. And Putin is only relying on his folders and stickers provided by assistants, gathering information. And the only way he is ruling his country is by pouring money and suppressing all the rebellion, all the other opinions. This is a whole other approach. By the way, in Kherson, 3 Russian FSB officers were shot from machine gun. Is it partisan activity? Oh yeah, it was partisan activity. Those 3 were really obnoxious and loud in the area, and they were behaving real bad, so they got special delivery and closed the question. Interesting, right? Yeah, so when we'll be liberating Kherson, there'll be a lot of interesting things happening inside the city. So it will not be just the external push. Yeah. You think there'll be executions of the Russian FSB officers and such? Oh yeah, I believe so. They're already happening, right? We're not even in the city. And they're not smart people. I don't know what you need to have in your brain, because many of these Russians of the occupants actually brought their families with them. I don't know how mentally sick you need to be to bring your family to occupy an empty apartment of people who fled from your aggression. So this is an interesting precedent. Now, about the oil refineries, towers in the Black Sea, what are they? They were the Ukraine gas pump towers. Russia privateered them during the Crimea War and owned them and was properly pumping gas. And, the world terrorism and stealing the government property, all that. They also shot at Ukraine plane when it was doing the fly around, and they had some facilities placed there some equipment that could do the radio location intel on the Black Sea front. So as of today, yeah, something happened on those towers, on those rigs. They're gas pumping rigs. What happened? The missiles? No. Just I think some of their soldiers were smoking in the wrong place. It's a gas facility, a lot of danger. I heard it was missiles. No, Mark, no. It was just smoking in the wrong place. There was a loud sound and a bit of smoke. And out of about 100 people that were there, we got the note that 20 were saved. The rest, they're still looking for. I did not know they had 109. Well, yeah, there's about over a dozen of gas miners at all times on the rotation, and then there is a military team that was doing all the military service. So what about the platforms? Are they there now? One of them, according to our data, already collapsed. The others are still burning. And gas is such a thing, if it's burning, it's real hard to put it out. It's melting everything. So as somebody wrote in a gas forum, did they have time to shut the valve? Because if they didn't, that'll be an eternal flame right there. Hard to tell. There are some rescue boats trying to put the fires out, but you think there'll be no gas coming from that? I suspect no. I suspect Russia will not be able to steal our gas anymore. But that's only half an issue. Another issue was that on the Snake Island, there are a lot of good fat targets. And this morning they had an arrival of a lot of missiles from Ukraine. So there was a lot of noise and a lot of smoke. It was so smoky we couldn't even tell how much of the infrastructure and the personnel is left on the island. Now Russian fleet is in a very dangerous situation. Why? Because the rules of the naval engagement have changed completely. Now they need to get rid of the initial shock, find the volunteers to resupply Snake Island again, find people who would actually want to go there again, or forcibly send them there to likely be hit again. And they need to do that in the conditions when they are not unreachable anymore, untouchable. They're an equal target as in a good old battle game. So what is happening? What changed? Oh, I think they're all smoking in wrong places. It's such an epidemic there of safety. Right now, Igor Girkin, one of the first war Russian side terrorists, he actually set out the statement that there was a Black Sea fleet that left the ports and is going to Odessa. So I need to calm people down on the Ukraine side. No, they're not going anywhere. They left the port and they lined up on the western side of Crimea. And it looks like they're prepping for a missile attack. They're all missile-carrying ships. So it seems like they're targeting something in Ukraine. And like Peskov said today, this is a violation of everything. And they referred that to Lithuania too. We'll talk about that. But they said that regarding the platforms, Ukraine, by hitting the gas drilling platforms, has untied Russian hands. So Russia is free now to strike the center of decision-making. I saw that, yeah, I saw that statement. So your hands were tied before that, all that 120 years of war? Of course they weren't. It's just a phrase, you know. All smart people already asked the question, what happened before? In Bucha, or when you were shelling Ukraine 100 missiles a day, you had your hands tied? But that's the story. We'll see. We'll see what happens. They might launch something today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. I do recommend our citizens who live in Kiev and other places, but Kiev, especially close to Bankovskaya and Pechorskaya Street, do not neglect the sirens. If you hear them, hide, just to stay safe. Things may happen. Wait, but Ukraine military and anti-missile defense, they can do something maybe, or take some measures against that aggregation of Russian missile-worthy battleships. So, or somebody smokes in the wrong place. Well, you know, war is a two-sided engagement. We work on them, they work on us. We understand that the danger is always there, and we need to be careful. We don't know where it will fly, but Kiev is included. All right, 415,000 people watching us, and we're only 23 minutes live. The rest, you know, will not waste our time. Subscribe. Let's talk about Lithuania. So, as they clarified, the loads they prohibited from transit were sanctioned cargo. And Lithuania is a member of European Union, so they're following European Union decree about certain goods being limited or prohibited for delivery to Russia. So Lithuania is just following that. Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs skedaddled and started running around and sending statements everywhere. And they said something that Ministry of Foreign Affairs should not be saying. They actually threatened war. If you notice, Kazakhstan also has an inflammation of relations with Russia. So one side cut them off from oil, another cut the other from coal. So I have a question. People who are flushing down the drain one conflict they already have, What are they thinking about when they're threatening two more countries? I think they're just trying to scare people and, gangster style. I'm so tough. Yeah, but I'm thinking they're also maybe wanting to hide and to lose that war real fast, to expedite their loss. Because, Takayev is a smart fella over in Kazakhstan. He's got relations with China, and he somewhat can lean to their protectorate. And Lithuania is a member of EU, so that's another pole, center of power. So we'll see what they'll do in Lithuania. They may not take off all the restrictions. They might find some way forward and alleviate some cases with Kaliningrad, but otherwise they will likely maintain. And pay attention, it's a day 120 of the conflict where they suffered significant losses, and yet they're still threatening everybody around them. They're threatening other countries. So that tells you that they're disconnected from reality. And that is also possibly partly due to the Putin not visiting the front lines. He is so removed, and he sees them from Kremlin. He sees the number of airplanes, the number of missiles, and he thinks people are afraid of him. But in reality, nobody is. Yet these people think that it is possible to threaten, and even important to threaten other countries. So we'll see how that develops. In your opinion, if we're talking about European Union and candidacy in that organization and voting, Moldova and Ukraine will be given a de facto candidate status. Yeah, this week, we're expecting that this week. So it is a solved question, right? It's just technicality, yes. Georgia, at the same time, never got to that status. Tell me, since you had good warm relations with Georgian government, because in part due to me as the known provocateur, so Georgian regime is saying that, yeah, of course, Ukraine would get that status, and Georgia did not get one, and still cannot get one. Why do you think is it happening? What's your prognosis? Do you want prognosis or explanation? Let's do explanation. Okay, first about provocateur, Mark. We love all people. We don't argue. We don't fall out with other people. There are people who don't like us, but we are not necessarily targeting and vilifying anyone. But among all these people, I really do like the current administration of Georgia. And I want to say that they're amazing people who manage a beautiful country, my small homeland. But they're valued and they're gauged not by me only, but also by the European Union leadership. And European Union doesn't seem to appreciate them that much as I do. So do you want to say that if they did not do something, the reaction of European Union would be different? As a private person, I may want to say that perhaps European Union doesn't like them because their current outlook is very similar to our previous president Yanukovych, very corrupt. Perhaps due to the fact that Georgian position against Russia is somewhat controversial, is controversial to the European policy that Europe is implementing now against Russia. So Georgia is not supporting that. And Georgian government, if they do want to be closer to European Union, they need to be closer to their efforts and sanctions and everything. So somehow, yeah, they were not approved. And there was a chance, you think? Of course they had a chance. Georgia went on this path much earlier than Ukraine. They were there during Saakashvili reforms, before the Russia-Georgia war. So what if the question about Saakashvili in Georgia, I'm not talking about Georgian people, I'm talking about Georgia administration. Oh, I'm personally seeing here that I have no qualms with the Georgian government. Okay, but just hypothetically, if they were straightforward about the conflict in Ukraine, about the war that Russia is conducting there, if they would have supported sanctions and find other ways to support Ukraine and influence that situation, do you think they would have a bigger chance to gain European candidacy? Somehow I have the phrase in my mind that Russian proverb, if grandma had wheels, she would not be a grandma, she would be a tram. And I'm making it sound PG from the original of the saying. So I'm saying is that current Georgian government is not capable of making these decisions. So they have different logic, different values, right? So they have to choose between joining the European Union or their current values. Exactly. You can see according to their reaction to what's happening here, and yeah, you'll understand soon whom do we deal here with. All right, we'll see that soon. These are rather open questions, they're not mysteries. We understand that you can see a difference between Moldova and Georgia. Moldova is not fighting like Georgia, but they will get a status of candidate, right? Well, yeah, it's not Ukraine who gave this who gave this grade to these two countries. It was European Union administration who gave this grade to these countries. They're also reviewing the package of $9 billion, a financial package support for Ukraine, which is a great tool for macroeconomic stabilization for the country in war. Also, an interesting number. Since April, the amount of assets of Russian oligarchs frozen in Europe grew from 67 billions to over 100. They include helicopters, yachts, works of art, real estate, other assets. Such a big increase of the frozen assets included happened during the last weeks and happened due to the Germany joining the effort of freezing Russian assets. So it doesn't serve as a good indicator that Germany is moving towards that goal. By the way, yeah, I heard in Munich they arrested 3 apartments owned by one of the Russian Communist Party representatives in Russian Duma. That's speaking of those bare-butt Marxists who are not so poor. Well, you know, Mark, maybe he wanted to live the life of bourgeois to know better how to fight with them. Oh, yeah, right, that's the theory. Now, European Union also adopted another prohibition for import of anything from Crimea and Sevastopol, as they're occupied territories currently by Russia. Also, our president supported today Ukraine joining the initiative of 3 Seas, Adriatic, Baltic, and Black. There are 12 countries in this group. President of Croatia and Poland suggested that, and it involves creation of infrastructure between these countries, and also a lot of internal networking between the countries working and using these seas for transport. We still have not unblocked our ports. Our president stated today that he is working on it, but did not have much success yet. And, you know, we mentioned before that we'll never be able to come back to Ukraine pre-24th of February. Unblocking these risks, the prognostications that exist, that's what President is concentrating his effort on. His office is working that. We started to work more actively on the regional connections, looking for opportunities to deliver cargo from Ukraine using these initiatives from the 3 Seas group. So that's where it goes to. By the way, also Australia sent us some armored vehicles, 14 of those personnel carriers, and we're more on the way, so more news. All right, yep. We're trying to monitor everything's coming. Today there was another discussion about the longevity of this war, the duration. Not without mentioning you, and I will not mention the last names, I usually don't do that, but people were discussing the time frame of this warfare. Blitzkrieg didn't work out. Moscow failed to do that. There were attempts to advance after and capture other goals, and this didn't work out as well. So it appears that in Moscow itself, they're also trying to build a system with an outlook that this will be a lengthy conflict, and kind of like you had the slow burning war in Donbass, in Donetsk and Lugansk, but with the difference that the war front is much bigger and it's somewhat hotter. We also saw your video with Podolyak about the fears of Belarus invading Ukraine. That was funny. So a question. What are the terms if this conflict will last long? How strong is Ukraine? How long can Ukraine endure if that conflict lasts for a year, 2, 3, or 8? The hot phase of this conflict. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dmitry Kuleba, said wonderfully today that if you don't give us heavy weapons, we'll be fighting with shovels as long as we can. The Russian Federation has an easy way out. They can stop the war. We don't have an easy way out. We can either win or die. That's pretty simple. So, as you see, there is not much of a room for a compromise in that situation for us, regardless of how well we are armed. One has to understand that we likely will not be left alone because, and there were a lot of statements to that defense, because the situation when we're left alone and Kremlin occupies Ukraine will be much worse for Europe and the world if that would not happen. Speaking of the length of the conflict, I don't think that it'll last for 2 or 3 or more years. Could be 1-year conflict. Because Russia can only go so far taking equipment from storage. Sooner or later, they run out of idiots. I'm also curious about how they will follow their plan about putting 10 battalion tactical groups on the front every month. Looking at all these T-62s and T-80s, the old tanks, I sincerely suspect they're not capable of doing it. Even near Severodonetsk, I can see that they're moving 3 tanks there, 2 tanks here. This is not even a battalion movement. They're just, split battalion into little groups and move them around. And this is not the amount of power you need to have to reach the goals that they set in front of them. So looking at that, I already see that they paid a hefty price and they're being worn out. If you see, a lot of Russian detachments have about 30% of refusals to go on the front. And there are secondary refusals. This is a very good indicator that also up to 30% refuse it twice. Then even in the elite, you would think there would be elite troops like Kantemirovskaya, Tamanskaya. There are people refusing or they're not fully. They don't have full complement of personnel. So the perspective is pretty gloomy for Russia. Replace 2-3 weeks with 4 or 5 months, that's pretty gloomy for them. And if Ukraine takes Kherson, then there is a big question posed. Why? We went there, we got the targets, we lost tens of thousands of people, and for what? Now Ukrainians are taking it back. So yeah, if the conflict endures, one of the important factors would be creating a new military conflict within Russia, which likely will happen at some point. And also even to the wide masses who would not want to go to that war. Why do we want to go die there? There's no success, there's no reason. and including the higher echelons of power and oligarchs who are also getting tired of all these sanctions against them. So it should lead, every lengthy war should lead to a big crisis within Russia. There is such a concept as perspective, right? If you understand the perspective, you can go and suffer sacrifice, you can do different things, you can endure. But what is a perspective here? They believed a fairy tale that the West will be tired of Ukraine. Yeah, this is a common thesis in Moscow. This is because they put that in the information field. They threw some in Western media, they threw some in Moscow. In the West, this information didn't last for long. So Moscow citizens are the only ones eating it and thinking that's truth. The lowering of the interest into current warfare for 20 times compared with February, that's natural. Unless we have the aliens landing here with their spaceship. But even then, after 100 days of them, the interest would go down. The thing is, I don't see that in Russia, and I would want to hear that from many of the opponents on their side. A good perspective. The best perspective they're relying for is that the West giving up Ukraine under energy and political pressure from Russia and pushes Ukraine, or what's left of it, to Minsk III agreement. We had that first attempt, that triplet came here, President Draghi. So consider them as representatives of this set of ideas. What did they leave with? They left with official statements that they will support Ukraine till the end. French people are being ready to a difficult winter with very high energy prices. So Brits are also going through that. Americans are trying to support as well as they can, even though some of their prices are rising too. And, that seems that the West is not tired of Ukraine. And our support is exceeding 70%, according to the polls in the West. So I think everybody understood that situation. I don't see perspectives for Putin regime. They brought Russia to a catastrophe, and I don't see an easy exit for them. You understand that? I don't see that exit. All right, we've been for 43 minutes live, 453,000 people watching us. Big ask, please share the links to this stream in your groups, in your social media. Subscribe to Feygin Live, subscribe to Olexiy's channel. We're at about 1.5 million subscribers already. If you're watching that in English, side note, subscribe to Privateer Station. We do appreciate your support as well. By the way, Mark, how will Russia fall on this war? Okay, tell us. It will be similar to Chernigov and the way it was happening there. At first, there were refusers, people who do not want to fight. Then there'll be more of them who don't want to go fighting. And then one day they'll just lay down arms and say they don't want to fight or don't want to die here under M177, M109 or HIMARS systems or our other weapons. They'll be gone with the wind. One day there'll be a big downfall. They'll just retreat and withdraw from the borders. And likely it will be the same way that nothing will predict it. Kind of like near Kiev, when they still had enough force to try to capture the city again, but they just gave up and left. So that's what I think will happen, and before the end of this year. This is a very optimistic scenario. Great, let's continue our conversation tomorrow. Same time, I call upon our viewers to not miss this opportunity. Get online at 10 p.m. Kiev time, and we'll be talking that live here. Side note, Privateer Station, we're trying to catch up with these casts, so we'll release something later tonight and the day tomorrow. Share links, and we appreciate your presence, your being with us. And we'll concentrate on Severodonetsk and Kharkov tomorrow. Great, we'll do that. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Olexiy. See you tomorrow.